Alrighty, welcome to the show. My name is Trevor Young, and as long-term listeners might know, there's four parts to the Reputation Revolution podcast. Number one is about establishing your voice in the marketplace. Number two is about enhancing the credibility of that voice. Number three is about extending the reach of that voice and creating an audience of fans, followers, champions, allies, and enthusiasts of your personal brand and what it is you do and stand for. And finally, extract the value from your voice. And that's where the commercial aspects and the impact that you want to be making. So with that in mind today, our guest is Jenna Soard. Now, Jenna is a brand and design expert and course creation circus master. We'll get into what a course creation circus master is. She helps coaches, creators, and consultants build, grow and launch profitable online courses, membership communities and group coaching programs quickly. And when I say quickly, in under 60 days. And we're going to dissect that. But before we get into anything, Jenna, welcome to the show. And what were you doing 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And 10 years ago, I was just figuring out that the online world even existed as something that you could create an online course and sell it and be able to scale your time and your expertise. It all started with an ex-boyfriend found an email from, I think, like Wayne Dyer or Zig Ziglar or somebody. And he gave it to me and he sent me the email. I have the forwarded email. He says, I think this might be something you might be into. Like, maybe there's something here for you. And at that point, it, like, just reading that email lit something on fire for me, because I had been killing myself working with 20 graphic design clients. And I just knew at that moment, like, oh, duh, why don't we start a course? And then I can teach thousands of people and I'll be able to make way more money and I won't be so stressed out and I won't be capped out. And then I went on a mission from that point forward that I was going to teach at the University of Oregon and I was going to design for Nike so that I could steal all of their ideas, learn how to teach, and create my own online course. So that was me 10 years ago.
And did you get to Nike?
Yeah, so I got a job working for Nike first as a graphic developer and then as a senior graphic designer for Nike Tennis. And I'm totally, as an entrepreneur, unemployable, because I get to a point at about week number, I don't know, maybe 8, maybe 16, where I just start crying every day about having to go to the same cubicle and see the same people and like have to make somebody else's dream come true. And so I really took the job working at Nike to, one, use my degree because I had a multimedia design degree, and two, come in and like be able to steal all of their ideas on how they actually brand, because I wanted to teach branding. So I was like, well, what a better way than to do that with somebody like Nike, is go see how they do it.
Absolutely. Why not go to the top, one of the best branding organizations in the world? So from that point of view, you've obviously gone and done it. So you've eaten your own dog food in advance. Tell us how did that process go for you? Because I guess the back end of course creation and all that is very sophisticated today, but going back a few years, I was probably tipping that it wasn't as much.
Yeah, it was really, really, really difficult because we just didn't have the services that we have now. We didn't have like the uploading speeds and the processor speeds to get videos up quickly. So when you would create a video, it'd take like, hours to upload it. The social media was pretty new still. Facebook was in its infant stages, and it was kind of funny. I remember I was teaching a course on marketing and I was teaching people about Facebook ads and about how powerful they were. And yet I wasn't actually doing them. And I'm like, wow, if I would have been practicing what I was teaching, I would be way farther.
And I'm sure that the cost per click would have been well down on what it would be today.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, nobody knew. It was such a powerful thing back then because there was just not very many people doing it. It was very inexpensive and it was very powerful. But yeah, I would say that some of the things that did not exist during that time, we didn't have course creation platform systems. The only systems that were usable for the average everyday Joe was something like Wishlist, with WordPress. So you had WordPress and WordPress plugins. It was really complicated to set up. At the college level, we were working with, their own learning management systems like Blackboard. So that existed, which is something that only universities use, and it's very clunky and not very sexy at all. But by the time I launched my first course in 2013, there still wasn't course creation platforms. Like Teachable didn't exist. Kajabi didn't exist. If they did, they were also in their infant stages. The only course platforms that I knew about were the Zippy courses by Derek Halpern, and it was a WordPress plugin. So I ended up finding a software solution that was not intended to be for courses to use for it. It was a online community called Ning. If you remember Ning.
Oh, Ning. I do remember Ning. Ning.
Yeah.
And the person who started Ning has now got Mighty Networks, which is a pretty well-established Ginny, isn't it? Ginny.
Yep.
Bianchi.
Yeah. I don't know what her name. It was really interesting because I had enough foresight to see how important it was to have something like a profile picture or a discussion board. And a lot of these like services that were way back in the day just didn't have a lot of those kind of social networking sort of feelings. So it really created a great, student experience, even though it was way before anybody really knew what online courses was.
Alrighty, so fast forward to today, and now you are helping others to do it, and you've clearly been learning along the way and got results out of it, etc. I probably want to cover a few myths too before we get into how you sort of take people through in sort of getting things going in under 60 days. But let's break first. So we've talked a lot about online courses, and most people would be aware of online courses, and whether it's through a Teachable platform or a Thinkific or Udemy or the LinkedIn Learning, they've all got their own things now. Very often, very video based, and with transcripts and notes and checklists and templates that you download, all of that sort of stuff. So that side of thing but it could be a super expensive one, or it could be a $50 one. So there's big pricing differences. Big differences in whether it's guided, whether there's a community around it. So there's a lot around just the courses. But of course, we've mentioned at the top end, there's membership communities, and we know there's a big move. You mentioned, having worked at Nike. Nike have got a private Facebook page, I understand, which is going nuts, as has Peloton and a number of brands have got them because people want to go to a safer space where they can discuss with like minds. And so membership communities do that, and we're seeing a big swing. I've got one client who started last year and is getting really great results with a small but growing cohort. And group coaching is different again. So why don't you unpack a little bit on membership communities and group coaching, because some people might not be aware of that. And again, if you've built this profile, you've got this reputation, things will happen and myriad opportunities will present themselves. But there are many different ways of commercializing your personal brand.
Yeah. So in regards to what we believe for course creation and for memberships and group coaching, is that they're all kind of interconnected, actually. So the first thing is that can you create something that people really truly feel is a solution to a problem that they're actively seeking a solution for? Any good course is going to be in the language and be solving a problem that not just one person, but like many people are actively seeking, right? So oftentimes I was just talking to a hypnotherapist today, and I was telling her about how one of my mentors is a hypnotherapist that has a podcast, and she was like, "Oh, I'm starting one and it just sounds so similar." And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's great. That means there's a market for it." And so often people go, "Oh, well, I don't want to go do, LinkedIn because Lewis Howes is known for that, or I don't want to do, courses for women because Marie Forleo is known for that, or I don't want to, do list building or certain things because Amy Porterfield's, so like people get scared about who somebody's going to accuse them of copying, right? And so what I say is that if somebody's not teaching in the field that you're trying to do, if somebody's not solving the problem that you're trying to solve, the problem isn't big enough, right? So you need to have a problem that people are actively seeking, or you fall into one of two problems. If you go too broad, you have too many people in the market, too many different ideal clients, and it can feel generalized and a little bit like a commodity. You go too specific and the market gets too small. So there's this perfect sweet spot in the middle that's like a refined target market that's actively seeking the solution, and you're providing that solution with maybe a spin on it that nobody else is doing, right? And that's the part where you get to be unique. Like, how can you do something that is more enjoyable, quicker, has a creative spin on it, something about it. And I like to think of Peloton when I think about this, right? They took a very, very tired commodity market like treadmills and bicycles, where 5 years ago, before Peloton existed, what brand are you loyal to with treadmills and bicycles? You would be like, I don't know, like, where would you buy it? Where would you buy one?
Wouldn't know where to start.
You would ask yourself, well, what is the brand you would be loyal to in that situation? And the answer is that you probably wouldn't be when it's a commodity. But when Peloton came out with this ability to do live courses, it carved a niche in the marketplace that Eugene Schwartz from Breakthrough Advertising, one of the most famous advertising books ever from like the 1900s, would have said that it is a unique mechanism. It's a mechanism that would stand out in a crowded marketplace, which carves out a niche that nobody can compete with for at least 5 or 10 years, because they're going to get so much of the market share. So that's the first part of creating a course that actually sells, is how can you capitalize on a huge audience that's seeking a problem and solve the solution in a way that maybe the market isn't solving it.
And again, that could be membership communities, or it could be group coaching.
Yeah,
so they're all connected.
You cannot sell any of those things unless you have step number 1 figured out. Because if you try to get too creative, or you try to sell the wrong solution to the target you want to work with, you're not speaking to them in their language, you're not speaking to their problem, but they are the type of person that you want to work with. Yeah. Or you are selling the perfect solution that somebody would totally love and be into, but you're putting it in front of the wrong market. Anytime that a course or a membership or a group coaching program is not selling, it's usually falling into one of those two issues. When you have the right offer to the right target, that is when you explode, and that you have something that is not going to have so much competition because you're doing things just a little bit differently. And so that's the basis of how to do that.
Excellent. So let's actually, while we're on that track, then on that thread, let's go with that, the process that you take people through. So, in under 60 days, it's clearly about momentum and getting people going. And because I'm tipping there's quite a few procrastinators in this space, and they've been going to do a course just like they've been going to write a book for many years. And there's always plenty of excuses on why not to do it. Having fallen for that myself, knowing from very good experience, very first-hand experience. So walk us through that. What are the steps or the stages? Because it's kind of like I guess it's a transformation. They get an outcome at the end.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we did was, the reason why I decided to start teaching people how to create courses, membership sites, and group coaching programs was because I took my audience on the journey with me, right? And so in the beginning, I was teaching branding and design and websites. And one of the things that I noticed about the people who were coming through that course was that they were creating beautiful websites for products that people didn't want. And I ethically couldn't do it anymore. I was like, this is a waste of your time. Yes, you've created a beautiful website. The only way that I felt really good about that course selling was when those people became designers and they went and worked for other people and had successful businesses because they learned a skill that actually made them money. So when I went to my audience and I asked them, what do you want to learn from me? And this was like probably in like 2015. In 2015, about 2.5 years in, they said, Jenna, we see you doing these courses. We love what you're doing. You have group coaching as a part of this, which so many of the courses that we've taken don't have this hand-in-hand instruction. You're really doing it with us. People don't do this. Can you teach us how to create our own courses so that we can do it with people too, and be able to take on 50 or 100 clients instead of 10. And so that was the first, ignition to being able to start my methodology. And the methodology really came from a fear of selling. Me as an early entrepreneur, I used to teach ethics at the University of Oregon, and I also taught entrepreneurship. And I really didn't feel ethically okay with selling a course to somebody that wasn't tested. So when I had done my course originally, the thing that had gotten me wins and had gotten me testimonials and got me case studies and had gotten me lifetime foundational members was actually doing a beta test. And so I created a unique beta testing methodology that nobody had ever taught before. And it became the thing that I was known in the industry for, because it was all about service first and asking for the sale later. And because it was set under the pretense of creating a course with 50 to 500 to 1,000 people waiting for it, it really propelled people to get the course done. It really propelled people to build their list while they were creating the course, so that the course was like a lead generation opportunity. And then it also turned into something where they were not unethically pre-selling the course before they had any sort of experience. They were testing out the idea, using it as a lead generation opportunity, and then delivering and then asking for the sale. So if somebody wasn't interested in their topic, they just wouldn't even sign up for the beta test, even if it was free, right? So it was really, really great way to test at every level. Like, is this what people want? Can we give them transformation? Now that we've served them and gave them a $500 experience with group coaching over, 2 to 4 weeks, now we can ask for the sale, and they have enough know, like, and trust factor that asking them to invest in a $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 program is not that far of a step. See what I'm saying?
Can you back up a little bit there? So just explain when you're talking about beta testing, it's a term that we're used to in the tech world, but not as much in this side of things, what that means and how many people, and are you charging them? And it's not the full course, but it's a group coaching before the course. Is that the thing?
So basically how it works is that beta testing is a term that came from creating phone apps in the web development world. What people figured out, or, companies and startup companies figured out, that if you went in and you built an app and you never had a user come in and use it, you would waste a ton of money, because they would be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these really expensive programmers to make an app that nobody knew how to use. So they developed a thing called iterative design, where they would take a concept for an app and they would build a little bit, get some testers to test it, see what they liked, pivot to whatever is going to work, test a little bit, pivot a little bit, it was like it's basically like a fail and pivot process. So beta testing in the course world means that instead of you spending 1,000,000 years going and creating a course that nobody wants, that you build a little bit, you test it, you ask for the sale. Most people in the industry do the opposite. They ask for the sale up front when they have no rapport with anyone. They only get a handful of sales. They don't understand why. And it's because they're leading with the thing that is the hardest part to get through. Why would a stranger whip out their credit card for you when you have no proof that your stuff works, that you have no idea what you're doing? It's a much easier ask to get people to come in and say, hey, I'm new, you're new. Come, try out my course. Give me some feedback. Did you like it? Give me some testimonials. Do you want to continue on this journey? Pay me. Like it's a very, very simple process. Mm-hmm.
So it's free to join up, and it's limited probably. And are you saying it's more of a face-to-face, not face-to-face Zoom sort of thing, group coaching, a bit more hands-on before you get to a course where it's probably maybe a little more hands-off?
No, the whole entire process is very hands-on. It all includes group coaching, because you as a new course creator should not be guessing about what to put into the course. You should not be guessing. You should not be randomly dumping an entire kitchen, everything under the kitchen sink in a course, making your videos 2 hours long a piece and hoping that people are just going to magically get transformation. Doing beta testing with live group coaching through the entire process, when they're free to when they're paid, this is like an incubator for your ideal client to tell you what they want and what they need. And if you can't get them excited about what you're doing at the free level, then you certainly are not going to get them excited when they're actually in it. So it's about creating an experience for them that is not under the guise of all the other stuff.
So you morph, you take people from the idea is you take people through the beta test, but then they go straight on to now it's time to pay. How long's normally like a beta test? Are we talking 2 weeks, 5 weeks?
Yeah, it generally can vary between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what the transformation is, depending on the desires of the course creator. So one of my clients, Matt Schaefer, his first beta test he ever did, he had such a big course. He really needed 2 full-on signature courses, but he had never taught before. So he had wanted to really fine-tune what the experience was going to be like for his people. So he did a beta test for an entire 30 days. He way over-delivered on it. And then when he asked them to buy at the end, his first launch was like 50,000. His second launch was like 90,000. His third launch was 180,000. Now he's got 5,485 testers in his current launch, which is double the amount that he's ever had in a launch before. He's got 1,000 people showing up to his coaching calls. And he's doing this because he ended up networking and finding somebody to promote his beta test on their YouTube channel of 1.5 million people.
Whoa.
Yeah. So why is that different than promoting a webinar or something? Because think about the value available for the person who you're asking to promote it, the value that their audience is receiving. Come take this 30-day or 2-week course with my friend who's going to give you feedback, and you're going to be in an experience, and you're going to get onboarded into an online class and watch videos and do all the things just like you're a student. That's a really high value thing for an affiliate to be able to promote versus imagine going to them and being like, hey, will you promote my webinar?
Yeah, I understand. And clearly the beta, 1, 2, 3 weeks or whatever, you're only teaching him X amount. Is that like the start of what a course would be? And then you come in at, like week 3 really is when the course kicks in.
Yeah, you want to, some of the best launches we've ever seen. Like I just did a launch for a client. It was a $550,000 launch, her first launch ever.
What?
550,000. She had never ever launched a course before. She's a famous poet, and she had an Instagram following of 100,000 people. And when she told me she had never sold them anything before, I was like, can I do this for free for commission, please? So I came in and I helped her. And what was really interesting about working with her was that she already had her course filmed. And so her course was not that long because it was, filmed in little 1 to 2 minute video chunks. And it was the name of the course was Meet Yourself in Truth. And she's like this amazing poet who helps people step into their truth. So I said, hey, what we're going to do for the beta is I want you to teach something live. And I want it to be the preliminary thing to get people prepared to come into your course. So we mapped out a quick curriculum. We figured out what she could teach before they came in. And she did it live. And it was such a magical experience that when people actually got into her real course, they were like, we want to be like the other thing that you did. So she continued on and did amazing, beautiful things with the actual course that they had gotten into. But it just goes to show you that sometimes creating a course first can do a disservice. She's going to go in and refilm and update and do some things because she's learned so much about her ideal client,
And she's got money for better budget.
Oh, yeah, way better.
Better production.
She had beautiful production with it, which is one of the things I would generally recommend somebody not do, right? I recommend that somebody really, go in and create something that is rough in the beginning. Like what's better? Spending $10,000 on videos on a course that's super boring, that does not answer the problem, or using an iPhone and a PayPal account to sell a program that actually creates transformation. When it comes down to it, you don't need a beautiful website. You don't need a social media following. You just need a solution.
Alrighty, so let's get into some of those myths that we outlined at the start or alluded to at the start. A lot of myths in this space, a lot of gurus, a lot of, all of that stuff. This formula, that formula, but a lot of people get scared, I think, because, well, I haven't got a big name. I've got the cred, I've got all that, I've got a small following like a lot of people, but I haven't got a massive email list or social media following or, stage presence or whatever it is if you're on the stage. What are some of the myths that you like smashing?
Some of the myths I love smashing is that it does actually not take very many people to generate some really, really, really good seed revenue for the business. Anything as small as like taking on a guest client and converting them into a paid client. You could start with one person if you wanted to, if you have 0 people on your list. But what we've seen from this is most of the people who come to us have never done this before. They've never ever had a list. They've never had a following. I mean, when I would get those dream clients, like the woman who did the course about truth, I took that on because I was like, oh, this is going to be so fun to see what we can do with her huge audience, right? But that was not the norm. The norm is that helping people create, 50,000 to 100,000. I mean, that guy, Matt, he had 0 people on his email list when he came to me. He followed my method. He ended up really listening to me on finding somebody who could be an affiliate for him. And that generated $350,000 in the business. And he only spent, I think, a total of $3,000 on ads to generate that $350,000 because of him networking. Does everybody who comes into my program do that? No. There are people who don't do any networking. They like just come in and do ads and still manage to make, anywhere between 15 to 25,000 on a first launch, just completely going for cold. It depends on the price of your program. It depends on the solution that you're offering. We had somebody who came in with a 0-person list who teaches people how to sell, and they did over 100,000 in sales, and their leads were quite a bit more expensive because of what they were refining down to a more qualified lead. So they spent quite a bit more on ads, but still made 100,000, even though they had 0 people on their list. So it's all about that perfect market mix of, the right type of client, the right type of offer, showing that value up front, that know, like, and trust factor, so that when it comes time to them to make the investment, it's easy because they already have that relationship with you.
They can always go back and check you out too if it comes through a cold video or a word of mouth or something, that they can check you out a little bit, so you've got the bona fides. The guy, Matt, what was the industry that he was in?
Oh, yeah. So Matt is a transformational coach and was teaching. This is actually really awesome because he teaches a course about relationships and dating. And there's a common myth in the relationship space that it's hard to make money in it. And, most of the courses, if you look at Matthew Hussey, who's a dating coach, if you look at the majority of the courses that are out there, they usually are in the $97 to $500 range. And occasionally you'll see like a $2,000 to $3,000 course. And what Matt ended up doing was that the last launch that he did before the one that he's in like right now, I made him step out of his comfort zone and sell a VIP package in addition to his normal course creation, where I said, guess what, Matt, this time you are not going to actually teach the, 100 people or 180 people that are going to come into the program. What you're going to do this time is you're going to create a VIP version where they get access to you for 12 payments of $497. And if they want to do just the program with one of your student coaches or your coaches that, one of your rock star students, then they can pay 12 payments of $97. So you have this sort of higher priced $5,000 to $6,000, price anchor, and you only, give a limited amount of spots for it. So let's say like no more than 25 people. And then you've got this other side where it could be 200 people. And so anybody who fell in love with him and wanted to work with him would go in and do it. And he was like, I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to buy it. Like, I was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? They're either going to not pay it or you'll get a couple and you can decide if you want to move forward with them. Or you can go over and they'll just go over and buy the cheaper version, like no harm, no foul. You can always go back if it's a flop and like go back and teach them or whatever. So what ended up happening is he landed 14 high ticket sales. and it then eliminated all the work. I mean, he ended up getting, in addition to the 14, like an additional like 100 something on the lower end, But then he could take those 100 women that had signed up to do it with the student coach, and he doesn't have to serve them. So now he's made he ended up making about 40,000 less in the launch than he did when he did it all him for $1,000. But he's only serving 14 people now. And he also, in that $180,000 launch, he had promised that he was going to give all 180 people a one-on-one half an hour or hour call. So I think it worked out to be 90 hours of consulting to make that additional 40,000. And so he was happy to not have all of that work, because you can imagine over a year, if you have 90 coaching sessions, it's just like not a very fun thing to have.
Yeah, that's a lot. So that's a terrific story, and I guess it comes down to, again, you got to get it right at the start. It's they're the things that the having the person who's got the problem, you've got the solution, but you need to know who that person is and what the solution is that you do. And it doesn't sound like there's anything that can be too niche, because you've got a global audience when it comes to delivery now, and all the mechanisms to be able to reach them. So even if it is, that's why you were sort of a niche proponent.
I mean, I believe, like what we were talking about before, between the difference between, something that's too niche or too broad, you run into issues. It kind of depends on the industry. You take something like the industry of fertility, we see people really struggle in teaching that in that industry. And so the question is, well, people are getting in vitro fertilization and paying $30,000. Why is it so hard for them to take a course? And I think that there's a lot of shame around fertility. So like, if you have a particular topic that people have shame or pain or baby loss or something that's going to make them feel like less of a woman, or, any of those things, those start to get trickier to sell to, because they may not believe that you really have the solution. You might have to speak more specifically to their problems. So one of the things that one of our students had come in and did a course on fertility, she realized that her secret sweet spot was with helping people with PCOS, which was this very specific thing. And so when she was speaking to their issues, it was, they were not getting the right kind of feedback from their doctor saying, you're never going to have a kid. And she's coming along and being like, you have PCOS. This is how I can help you. These are the things you need to do, blah, 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 blah. And that's a lot different than, I'm going to help you get pregnant, and here's the 27 ways to do that. And, so one was very general and was kind of landing on deaf ears. And the other one is like, oh, it sounds like this woman has the solution for me. So it kind of depends on what the industry is and kind of how they're positioning themselves. And yeah. That's how you figure that out.
That makes perfect sense, and then it's how you package it and all of that. So that comes into the, your presentation, the back end, the technology you pick. There's a little bit underneath the hood too, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I mean, with the way that course platforms are set up now, it's not that hard to set things up, especially if you do quick videos with things like Loom or companies like Descript that allow you to create videos and edit them like a word processor. I don't know if you know about this, but you can record a video, it creates an instant transcript, and you can edit it like you're in a word processor. Things are getting so easy that to whip up something and that solves a problem, people will generally invest in you if you're solving their problem and they like your energy and they like what you're all about. And that's really, really the main thing. And so part of the thing that we really train people on is, how do you not get caught in analysis paralysis? How do you have, hundreds of people waiting for you so you actually do the thing instead of waiting an entire year to pump out a video once every, 2 months to figure out how to do a course? And how do you really utilize like surveying and interviewing and, meeting with your beta testers and figuring out what they need and creating a product that they actually want? And this is what big brands do. They sit in a war room and they talk to people and they like figure out what they actually want, and then they produce that. So I always have this, you can quote me on this, saying the key to making lots of money is to find out what people want and give it to them.
Yes, it's you break it down to that, and it's quite basic. There's a little bit in the doing of it, but is there a dropout rate? So if you had, what's an average that your students get the beta testers, and do they do it? Well, I suppose they do it for every course, but they do the beta testing. They get people in. What's the average number of people they get? Are you sort of aware of that? And then how many go on to pay to do the course?
It really depends on a lot of different things. Number one, it depends on, I would say like the average beta test that people do is anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people. So it's going to be somewhere in between there. The conversion rates are going to vary greatly depending on where they got those leads. Did those 100 people come from their email list and their diehard fans? Well, they're going to be far more likely to convert than 100 people coming from a cold Facebook ad. So there isn't really like a straight answer for that. What I can tell you is that people who come from, either your personal Facebook page, your Facebook group that you've been dropping knowledge bombs for the past year, your own personal free Facebook group that you've been serving, so it could be other people's or it could be your own. The people who come from those things, like from your YouTube channel or from Instagram that have been following your stories for a long time, those people are 20 times more likely to convert than somebody who is coming in from an ad. Well, why do we even do ads then? Well, we do ads because when we looked at Matt Schaefer's, 350,000 in revenue, 87,000 of that came from ads. Okay. So the rest of that came from, people coming in from affiliate relationships. So if somebody says, well, what's the point if all the things come from, are higher converting through an affiliate or through your own personal audience, why do ads at all? And it's like, well, it could be a third of your sales. And so now let's strip that away. And if we would have taken the entire year and he had only done ads, well, that would only have been about $20,000 a launch. So he ultimately had these, almost a 6-figure launch within 2 or 3, within 2 launches. I think launch number 2 was 90,000. So if you imagine that he would have said, oh, I just am too afraid to go find an affiliate, or I don't want to network and I don't want to, go find people. If he just would have done ads, he wouldn't have had that successful of a year. So there is a perfect mix of diversifying where you're getting your lead sources from. And, some of those people who came in via those ads maybe didn't buy the first time, but they ended up buying the second or third launch that he did. And so the question is like, how many is there a perfect number? I would say minimum 100 warm leads would be the thing to do. Preferably, going out and having a mixture of all 3. And if you had a mixture of all 3, well, then you're going to have a really great launch, because even if your ad sucked, maybe your affiliate's going to be awesome. Or maybe if your affiliate's bad, maybe you're going to pick up a couple from ads and a couple from your list, and then that's going to be okay. So it kind of diversifies being able to, put your eggs like not all in one basket, essentially.
Yeah. Sounds good. Jenna, where do people find you and learn more about the sorts of things you do and the sorts of services you offer?
Yeah, so you can come find us at youcanlaunch, youcanlaunch.com. And you can also find me at jennasoard.com, which is JENNA and then SOARD.com. That's just kind of the website where we have a little bio and all the information. But youcanlaunch.com is where you can find out all about what we do. Yes.
Terrific. Thank you very much for the case studies and letting us in on your methodology. Much appreciated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was really nice to meet you, Trevor, and thank you so much for having me on. It was really good. It was really great to see you all and hear you all. I mean, have you all listen. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See ya.